Hello, comic book readers the world over, and welcome to a very special series of Inked Editorials. As a critic on a somewhat obscure website, I don't get a lot of requests. The requests I do get tend to come from people I actually know. So let's pretend that I get a bucket load of requests and resolve this one before it actually comes up. This is a list of my top 15 favorite superheroes. Now keep in mind that aside from the top 5 of this list, the list is subject to change because it's based on the last thing I read of that character that I happen to actually identify with as being that character. And that doesn't mean what's new on the shelves, New 52. So let's kick off this list with numbers 15 through 11.
Number 15, Starfire.
The first one on this list is a character I recently made a very brief editorial on. She's that lovable orange warrior princess, Starfire. Starfire I love more than any other reason because of her naivety and her ability to suddenly turn around and be totally awesome. I love the balance because when you read about her day-to-day with Teen Titans, you can almost forget that in a battle situation, she becomes a real champion and a force to be reckoned with. Many people would probably like to know what I think about her interpretation in the Teen Titans animated series. I like the show a lot, but for the purposes of the actual cartoon, she wasn't my favorite character. They took away your majorly modified Starfire's better comic book character arcs for the show, and in my own humble opinion, that wasn't an alteration for the better. Yes, I know that it was dominantly because the show was aimed at a younger audience and her arcs could get surprisingly dark when the lighthearted nature of her character is considered, but that contrast is part of what I love so much about her character. Her past is just jacked up, and yet she maintained that cheery, lovable kid sister mindset and vibe that makes me love her so. So in other words, suck it, Red Hood and the Outlaws.
Number 14, The Vision.
It's difficult to really explain away why I love most of the characters I like from the Avengers. The main reason it usually comes down to is that they were a part of the team I was exposed to earliest. The earliest rendition of the team I read had the Vision on it. At the time, I didn't know a whole lot about the character. I just knew he had cool powers, but looked pretty weird and had a costume that I originally didn't like, but really did grow on me over time. So naturally, I read back a little more and discovered that the Vision was the creation of one of my favorite Avengers villains, Ultron. His constant struggle with the desire to be more human and unlike his master is what made him, to me, such an intriguing character. At the time, I hadn't seen that, and as far as I'm concerned, he was the character that did it best. I'm not saying that other characters didn't do it well, but Vision made it work for me first and, in my mind, most effectively. Vision didn't just suffer from the common robot protagonist story arc of having Pinocchio syndrome and wanting to be a real boy. Instead, his arc was more based on questioning the actions of his creator and eventually deciding that he didn't want to be like him. Ultron created him to be his idea of perfect, but Ultron ended up creating an imperfect being with a sense of humanity. Vision had curiosity, he had compassion, he was human, and that was a major part of Ultron's ultimate imperfection, despite seeing himself as the ultimate perfect being. It's the simply wonderful irony of the arc surrounding the character.
Number 13, Superman and Batman.
I'm sure several fanboys are gasping in terror that I put these two on the same level as one another. See, here's the thing. They're both totally respectable superheroes in their own regards. They are two of the greatest superheroes to ever exist. They are written for two completely different audiences. They are polar opposites and best friends. That's right. Regardless of Batman's occasionally being represented as a brooding jerk from time to time, he sees Superman and the rest of the Justice League as equals. Superman and Batman are like brothers. They trust one another absolutely. They know each other. They have each other's backs. Superman is that type of nigh-incorruptible Boy Scout that I just can't get enough of. Meanwhile, Batman is just, he's coolness personified. They're only so low on this list because for a good long time I was boycotting both of them and am only just getting into more material with both of them that I am actually finding enjoyable. Batman at the time was too depressing for me and way too deep for my taste, and the inconsistency in Superman comics pertaining to his power level was pissing me off. But this is a revelation I only recently came across. Why on earth does everyone love to compare them so much? It's just a popularity engine and a dumb one. They're both totally awesome in their own regards, and I'm only saying so little about either of them because at some point I will most likely do an in-depth editorial on them both.
Number 12. Zatanna.
Most people really don't get why I like Zatanna and am not too fond of Doctor Strange. Not that I don't like Doctor Strange, I do. But I like Zatanna much more. Zatanna's concept is cool enough as is. She has to say things backwards in order to make stuff happen. But what always grabbed me about the character is that she treats everything like it's a show. She is honestly a show-offy attention seeker in many regards. Yet, there is still a deeper tragedy to the character that I get a sense she's just trying to mask with that persona. Everything she does, powers or not, is theatrical. That's why I really didn't like the treatment she was getting around the era of Identity Crisis. I love how she's a Vegas-style show magician, and as much of an attention hog as she is, she can be a real team player and even a leader if she needs to be. She's resourceful and has real style on top of just being a lot of fun. It's too bad she didn't get more screen time in the Justice League Unlimited cartoon, because when she was there, she was pretty wickedly awesome.
Number 11. Supergirl.
On the other side of the super coin is Supergirl. I'll start by saying that I am referring to Kara Zor-El and no one else. Her origin story has changed a dozen times over, and I must say that one of the more recent ones has grown on me. She was a teen on Krypton and witnessed when Brainiac invaded Kandor and made off with it. She was sent after Kal-El to watch him on Earth, and what happened? Her pod got stuck in suspended animation and she didn't age for years. Eventually, her pod landed on Earth and the rest is history. I like Supergirl because she is the younger, more naive one with a lot to learn. Kara doesn't hold back like her cousin does, and I'm not only referring to her powers. Kara wasn't raised the way Clark was. She didn't come up with his values or beliefs. She didn't have to restrain herself because all of this is new to her. She didn't grow up with these powers. She discovered them when she landed. As such, she doesn't just neglect to hold back her powers, she also doesn't hold back her fear or concern. Again, she was a teen when all of this happened to her. She actually witnessed it knowingly. It left her much more vulnerable than Clark from a psychological standpoint. Referring again to Superman Brainiac, she expresses a fear of Brainiac because of what he did to her home. She expresses a doubt in her own abilities when Superman tells her to try and stop a rocket from reaching the sun and causing it to go boom like Krypton's. She isn't afraid to, even in her heroic persona, act less like a hero and more like an average person. Clark Kent wears two masks metaphorically. He is Superman, the superhero, he is Mr. Kent, the secret identity, and Clark/Kal-El, the actual individual and person he is comfortably around his friends and loved ones. Kara doesn't have that distinction. She is Kara and that is it. There have been some moves to give her a secret identity and a personal identity like Superman. That's all good and well too. I haven't actually read into any of those, But there's no doubt in my mind that it could work because Superman is a mentor to her, or at least he's supposed to be. I haven't bothered enough with New 52 to know, and I don't intend to. Kara is perhaps one thing that people wanted out of Superman but failed to get. It seems like people identify more with Kara, but when it comes to that, I feel like people are missing that Clark is the one we're supposed to identify with, and not Superman or Mr. Kent. I don't really identify with her because I'm not a teenage girl, but I do love her as a character and counterpart to the Man of Steel. Stay tuned, because next we're going to be looking at numbers 10 through 6, but until then, this has been an Inked Editorial. I'm your host, the Ink Critic. This has been a That Rule production. You're awesome, and the end.